your husband, let me opue him and give him children. No, we love each other.
My wife, Baba said you drink this in the morning and in the evening. Make sure you drink it well and give me my grandchildren.
Okay, Mama.
The first time Tunde's mother arrived with a black nylon bag filled with bitter-smelling herbs, Morayo smiled, thanked her, and later cried quietly in the bathroom. It wasn't because she doubted God. It was because she was tired. Tired of explaining that love still existed in her home. Tired of proving that her marriage was not empty just because it had no child yet. For 4 years, Tunde and Morayo had been married, and for 4 years, they had waited for the fruit of the womb. Yet, despite the waiting, their home was full of laughter, respect, late-night talks, and a love that refused to crack under pressure. They met at a friend's wedding party in Surulere. Tunde had attended only because his colleagues from the bank insisted. Morayo, known in business circles as KG, was part of the bridal train, glowing in her asoebi. When Tunde asked her to dance, she hesitated at first, then smiled. That smile was all it took. They talked through the night about life, dreams, faith, and Lagos stress. By the time the wedding ended, they exchanged numbers. Months later, what started as casual conversations became something serious. 1 year after that, they stood before family and friends and said, "I do." They lived in a highbrow estate in Ikeja, the kind with steady power, clean water, and security men who greeted residents by name. Tunde worked in a reputable bank, disciplined and focused, often leaving home early in neatly pressed shirts. Morayo ran an online luxury thrift bag business, carefully sourcing original designer bags and selling to high-end clients. Her phone was always buzzing with orders. Money was not their problem. Love was not their problem. They were happy, genuinely happy. Even after 4 years without a child, they still held hands while praying. Tunde still called Morayo his answered prayer. Morayo still waited up for him on late work days. Unfortunately, their mothers did not share the same peace. Tunde's mother believed strongly in traditional remedies. Almost every visit, she came with herbs, roots, leaves, and powders soaked in local mixtures. "Morayo, drink this for 7 days," she would say, gently but firmly. Morayo would accept it respectfully. On the other hand, Morayo's mother believed deeply in spiritual intervention. She brought prayer water, anointing oil, and special prayer point from her church. "God will do it suddenly," she always said. So Morayo drank herbs in the morning and prayed with anointing oil at night, trying to keep peace, trying not to offend anyone, trying not to break. Through it all, Tunde never blamed her. He stood by her, shielding her from harsh words and reminding her that their love was bigger than the noise. Peace remained until the day a new tenant moved into the next flat. Her name was Margaret. Margaret was impossible to ignore. She was a very beautiful woman, tall, confident, with a figure-8 shape, a small waist, full hips, and a presence that made heads turn effortlessly. Men noticed her, some looked twice, others looked too long. She dressed well, walked boldly, and smiled like she knew her power. Margaret worked as a marketer with Coca-Cola, always dressed sharp, always busy, always outgoing. She left early in the mornings and returned late, her perfume lingering long after she passed. She was a single mother to a 9-year-old boy named Bidemi. Bidemi was quiet and well-behaved. He lived and schooled with his father, Benga, who was now remarried. During school holidays, Bidemi came to stay with his mother, meaning Margaret often had plenty of time to herself. And time, as fate would soon prove, can be dangerous. Margaret was friendly to Morayo, polite, smiling, curious. But when she saw Tunde for the first time, something flickered in her eyes, something that did not look innocent. She noticed there were no toys, no children's shoes outside, no school runs in the mornings. She noticed how quiet the flat was, too quiet for a home that had been married for years. That was when she knew. They were looking for a child. And from that moment, Margaret began to observe everything. How Tunde spoke to Morayo, how gentle he was, how protective, how patient. She studied their marriage like someone studying a book, turning pages slowly, memorizing details. It was a Saturday evening during school holidays. The estate was calm, children's laughter echoing lightly as the sun dipped low. Bidemi was outside, kicking his football back and forth on the pavement. He was small for his age, quiet, focused, nothing like the noisy children around. Just then, Tunde drove into the compound. As he stepped out of his car, he noticed the boy immediately. "Hey, champ," Tunde said with a smile. "Is that football?" Bidemi nodded shyly. "Which club do you support?" Tunde asked, crouching slightly. "Barcelona," Bidemi replied quickly, his eyes lighting up. Tunde laughed. "Ah, Messi fan." That was all it took. Within minutes, they were talking about football, matches, players, goals. Tunde even kicked the ball once or twice, laughing like he had forgotten the weight he carried daily. Morayo watched from the balcony. Her heart tightened, not with jealousy, but with longing. She had never seen Tunde look that way with a child. So natural, so joyful. Something about the moment pierced her deeply. Margaret stood nearby, pretending to check her phone, but her eyes were sharp. She saw the way Tunde smiled at Bidemi. She saw the ease. She saw what Morayo could not give him, yet. And inside her, a quiet thought took shape. A child changes everything. That evening, when Tunde and Morayo prayed together, Morayo held his hand a little tighter. Meanwhile, in the next flat, Margaret tucked Bidemi into bed and smiled to herself because she knew something Morayo didn't. Margaret did not rush things. She was patient, very patient. She began by pushing Bidemi gently towards Tunde, always smiling, always acting harmless. "Bidemi, Uncle Tunde likes you. Go and greet him well. Ask Uncle Tunde when he will take you and Mommy out." Bidemi, innocent and excited, obeyed. Each time Tunde came home, the boy ran to him, talking excitedly about football, school, and his favorite players. Tunde never pushed him away. He liked the boy too easily. Not because he was careless, but because Bidemi reminded him of what he longed for. Slowly, the two families grew close. Margaret invited them for dinner sometimes, but she was careful, very careful. She never invited Tunde alone. She always said, "Please come with Morayo." And they did. Tunde never stepped into Margaret's apartment without his wife, never lingered, never crossed a line. Morayo always walked beside him, calm, dignified, secure in her marriage. Margaret watched this closely. She tried everything: extra friendliness, unnecessary compliments, emotional stories about single motherhood, subtle vulnerability. She dressed well, laughed loudly, created moments that could have become something else. But Tunde remained the same, always respectful, always distant, always loyal. If Margaret called, Tunde put the phone on speaker. If she invited them, Morayo was present. If Bidemi needed help, Tunde informed his wife. And Morayo, oh Morayo, played her role perfectly. She always welcomed her husband at the gate, smiling, taking his bag, greeting him with warmth that left no space for doubt. Anyone watching could see it clearly. This man was deeply loved. Even Margaret noticed. It frustrated her, because the closer she moved, she realized something painful. Tunde was not the type of man who could be stolen. Soon, even the other neighbors began to notice. "Those people are always together," one whispered. "That banker and his wife, very united," another said. "And that Margaret said she's always with them." From the outside, it looked like friendship, but underneath, emotions were stirring. Some pure, some dangerous, some quietly desperate. Margaret smiled when people praised the closeness. Morayo smiled because she trusted her home. Tunde smiled because he believed boundaries were enough. None of them knew that closeness, when mixed with waiting, desire, and silent pressure, can sometimes open doors no one planned to unlock. And as weeks passed, a question began to form quietly in Margaret's heart. A question that would change everything.
Morayo traveled to Ibadan that weekend for her cousin's wedding. Tunde wanted to go with her, but work at the bank made it impossible. Still, Morayo did not leave anything to chance. On Friday night, she cooked his favorite meals: stew, rice, soup, packed them neatly and stocked the freezer. "You won't be eating outside," she said, smiling as she wiped her hands. Tunde laughed, "As if I don't know my wife." Before she left, they prayed together. Morayo reminded him to lock the doors properly. Tunde promised to call her every night. By Saturday evening, the compound was unusually quiet. Margaret noticed. She noticed Morayo's car was gone. She noticed the lights in the flat stayed on longer than usual, and she knew this was her chance. Tunde was settling in to watch a football match when he had a knock on the door. When he opened it, he saw Bidemi standing in front, holding a ball, with Margaret behind him, smiling softly. "Good evening, Uncle Tunde," Bidemi said cheerfully. Margaret added quickly, "Our DSTV decoder suddenly stopped working. Bidemi was really looking forward to the match. We thought we could join you, if that's okay." Tunde hesitated briefly, but seeing the boy's hopeful face, he stepped aside. "It's fine," he said. "Come in." They sat in the living room. The match played. Tunde focused on the screen, explaining football rules to Bidemi, laughing at missed chances. After a while, Bidemi slept off, curled up on the couch, tired from the excitement. That was when the atmosphere changed. Margaret shifted closer. Too close. "You're very kind, Tunde," she said softly. "Not many men would be like this." Tunde nodded politely, eyes still on the TV. She continued, "Morayo is lucky, very lucky." Tunde smiled. "Yes, she is." Margaret sighed, long and deliberately. "You know, loneliness is hard, especially when you are a single mother." Tunde finally turned to her. "It can't be easy." She leaned back slightly, adjusting herself, her voice lower now. "Sometimes you just want someone to see you, to understand." There was a pause. Tunde stood up. "I think it's getting late," he said calmly. "Bidemi should rest properly." Margaret looked at him, surprised. "I didn't mean anything bad," she said quickly, laughing it off. "I was just talking." Tunde nodded, firm but respectful. "I understand, but my wife is not around and I don't want any misunderstanding." The message was clear. Margaret's smile stiffened for just a second, then returned. "You're right, thank you for tonight." When Tunde carried Bidemi back to Margaret's apartment, the boy was fast asleep, his head resting on Tunde's shoulder. Margaret opened the door quickly and stepped aside. As soon as Tunde entered, she locked the door behind them. The sound of the lock clicked louder than it should have. Tunde turned immediately. "Why did you lock the door?" he asked, uneasy. Before he could say another word, Margaret stepped in front of him. She had changed, not into nightwear, not into something casual, something intentional. Tunde froze. "Margaret, please, what is going on?" he said sharply, backing away. She moved closer instead. "You've been kind to me," she said softly, "too kind to pretend you don't feel something." Tunde raised his voice now. "Stop this. This is wrong." She suddenly pushed him backward onto the couch. Not playfully, not gently. Tunde stood up immediately, panic flashing across his face. "Are you mad? What are you trying to do?" Margaret's voice dropped, cold, calculated. "If you don't stay quiet, I will scream. I will tell everyone you tried to force yourself on me." The room went silent. Bidemi slept on, unaware. Tunde felt his heart pounding violently in his chest. In that moment, he understood something terrifying. This was not temptation. This was a trap. He spoke slowly, carefully. "Margaret, think about your son. Think about what you are doing." For a second, doubt crossed her face. That second saved him. Using the moment, Tunde stepped back, grabbed the key gently, and headed for the door. Margaret shouted after him, but not loud enough, not yet. Tunde unlocked the door, stepped out, and did not look back. When he got into his flat, his hands were shaking. That night, he did not sleep, because he knew one thing clearly: his home was no longer safe.
Sunday afternoon, he was already restless. He barely slept the night before. His eyes were heavy, his mind louder than the generator outside. As soon as Morayo stepped into the house, travel worn but smiling, Tunde pulled her into a tight hug, tighter than usual. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Tunde nodded, but his body said otherwise. They sat down. He did not delay. He did not sugarcoat it. "Tunde," Morayo called again. "You're scaring me." He took a deep breath. "Margaret tried to set me up yesterday." Morayo froze. He told her everything, slowly, carefully. The knock, the match, Bidemi sleeping off, carrying him back, the locked door, the threat. As he spoke, Morayo's face drained of color. By the time he finished, tears streamed down her cheeks, not from doubt, but from shock and fear. "You believe me?" Tunde asked quietly. Morayo stood up, walked to him, and held his face firmly. "I trust you with my life," she said, "and that's why this hurts." They cried together, then they prayed, and together they decided something important. The next morning, Morayo didn't panic. She was hurt, yes, but she was also wise. She knew this wasn't just about anger. It was about protecting her marriage and showing Margaret the consequences of her recklessness. "Leave this to me," Morayo whispered to Tunde, holding his hand tightly. That afternoon, she invited Margaret for tea. Carefully, deliberately, she didn't make it sound confrontational. She smiled, friendly, warm, the kind of smile that could disarm anyone. Margaret arrived, expecting nerves, tension, maybe fear. Instead, Morayo greeted her as though nothing had happened. "Please, come in," Morayo said. Margaret hesitated, but stepped inside. She tried to gauge Morayo, looking for weakness. She found none. Morayo served tea, chatting lightly about trivial things, football, school, the estate. Margaret relaxed slightly, thinking she had the upper hand. Then slowly, Morayo's words shifted. "You know, Margaret," she said gently, leaning forward, "marriage is a beautiful thing. It takes trust, respect, and boundaries. Some people don't understand boundaries until they face them." Margaret stiffened, her smile faltering. Morayo continued, calm, precise. "I know you like my husband. I know you tried to make a move yesterday. But do you know what's worse than someone rejecting you? The humiliation of realizing everyone around you sees exactly what you are. Someone trying to break a home with deceit and lies." Margaret's eyes darted, but Morayo wasn't done. She reached into her bag, pulling out her phone. "I have the CCTV footage recordings of yesterday evening. Everything. The locked door, the conversation, your words to him, the closeness." She held the phone casually, as though it were nothing. Morayo smiled, kind but icy. "Yes, I believe in protecting my home and my family. And you should know that trying to frame Tunde would have consequences for you and for Bidemi. He is innocent, and I don't ever want him caught in a lie like that." Margaret's knees weakened. She tried to speak, to charm, to explain, but the words caught in her throat. The confidence she had worn like armor yesterday crumbled entirely. Morayo stood and walked to the door. "I hope this teaches you one thing. Respect boundaries or leave. Tunde and I are happy. We are united, and anyone who tries to break that will regret it, just like you will." Margaret's lips trembled. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. Slowly, she nodded, avoiding Morayo's eyes, and turned to leave, clutching her bag tightly. Tunde, watching the entire scene from the hallway, felt a weight lift from his chest. He held Morayo close. "You handled that perfectly," he said, voice full of awe and relief. Morayo smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "We always win when we protect what's ours together." Margaret didn't return to her house for days, weeks. Eventually, the whispers in the estate confirmed what everyone suspected. Margaret had packed and moved out quietly, embarrassed and exposed. And for the first time in a long while, the estate felt completely safe. Their love, tested but unbroken, shone brighter than ever. Months later, as life slowly returned to normal, Morayo missed her period. She didn't tell anyone, not even Tunde. She waited, And when the test showed 2 clear lines, she sat on the bathroom floor and wept, not from pain this time, but from answered prayer. Sometimes the storm comes not to destroy you, but to protect what God is about to bless.
Before you go, please subscribe to this channel. New African stories drop every week and you don't want to miss them. Like, share, and turn on the notification bell. Thank you for your support.
So beautiful.
You're glowing, my love.